Dr. Cole.
Dude, you're there.
What's going on, my man? You made it work.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. All right, we're up and running.
Let's knock this thing out. All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those of you joining me off Nutrition, I'm Tyler Cameron. I've been on some reality television shows, but big workout enthusiast. Been using Ultimate Nutrition since I was like 15 years old, believe it or not. Big fan of the product, the brand, everything about them. But more importantly, I'm here with Dr. Cole. I'm excited to introduce him. He's an orthopedic sports medicine surgeon at Rush Medical in Chicago. He's a team physician for a lot of the Chicago teams out there, which is awesome. Which is also home of the Optimum Nutrition headquarters. He also can perform at the highest levels, which I need your help probably. So I'm really glad to have you here, tap into what's going on in your world, and you teach us some things today.
I'm all in, Tyler. I got one question for you, though, okay?
Uh-oh.
I do 1,000 surgeries a year, operating on professional athletes, right?
Yes, sir.
And you date one woman who has 20 boyfriends. You got 2.2 million followers, and I got 5,000. What's wrong with this picture, brother?
But I would much rather have your bank account. I promise you that.
You're going to have to sort that for me at some point, okay?
We can switch if you want to switch. I can give you my account.
If I put your picture above my picture, let's switch roles and see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so tonight we are going to talk about sleep. It's one of my favorite things to do when I can actually do it, because sometimes I struggle with it. Before a big game, sometimes you get those jitters. You don't sleep well before. You're thinking about a million things that are going through your head. I was on a reality television show and didn't get much sleep doing that either, And, I understand with sports how much not sleeping affects your performance the next day. So we've also, Optimum Nutrition conducted their own surveys. This represents Americans and what's going on here with the pandemic to see what, people have been struggling with. And nearly half of them said sleep has been their biggest problem. And people, struggle with falling asleep with, stress. They keep waking up in the middle of the night, and it's a challenge. It makes it hard getting up in the morning. No one likes getting up in the morning after a long night of tossing and turning. So, Dr. Cole, please help us figure this out.
Well, I think the first thing, Tyler, is understanding why sleep is so important. It's kind of counterintuitive. You think, there's not much going on in sleep except you're just sleeping, but that's the time that you and I we repair things. That helps with learning and memory, but we also know that that's our time for recovery. So there's a lot of important things that happen in our brains in terms of secreting hormones and so forth. It reduces stress hormones. It's when growth hormone is secreted. It helps with repair. It helps with recovery. It helps with muscle recovery. There's a lot of things that actually happen. And it's also important because, we're really plugged in right now to our immune systems, given that, the pandemic has introduced a ton of variables since March. And our immune systems depend upon having proper sleep. So there's a 1,000 different reasons why sleep is important, but the most important one is that it helps us with our recovery, body restoration, cellular recovery, and if you're an exercise enthusiast, it helps with muscle recovery and energy production.
Yep. No doubt. I mean, our coaches always stress to us, when we were playing ball, is because a lot of, half the guys, first get to college, you want to be out all night, all those things. But all those guys ended up getting injured throughout the season because your body needs that time to recover. And if you're not recovering, you're hurt. And if you're hurt, you're not reliable on the team no more,
Right.
So, it's important. Like you said, immunity is something big. Can you tell us more so how it affects your immune system? I think it's a pretty big topic right now.
Yeah, so there are these little cells that are kind of like Pac-Men that travel in our body that help, attack organisms, bacteria, things like that. And there are these special cells called memory cells. And there's this interplay with sleep, circadian rhythm, sort of our sleep rhythm, and our immune system that help these cells function better. So these memory cells help identify bacteria and pathogens, things that are not good for your body, and help us get rid of them. And there's some excellent data that shows that it can upregulate our immune system. In addition, as I mentioned, there are certain hormones that we secrete at night that can suppress our immune system in the absence of sleep, and it's upregulated. We produce more of these hormones when we sleep. So super important to affect our immune system positively, and I would say that now more important than ever, this is a time where sleep is especially relevant in fighting disease and infection.
Yeah, because my next question for you is, can the stress of the pandemic be affecting our sleep as well?
Yeah, I think there isn't a person out there who admittedly hasn't had trouble. This pandemic has affected us in a variety of ways, and you and I have these circadian rhythms that help us with all these important functions, but these are definitely interrupted during sleep. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the stress that we're all kind of going through, and I think some people just don't understand the level of stress that they are actually going through. But I will tell you that sleep is one way to counteract it. And it really, if you can sort of eliminate the stress component, I think all of us could probably do a better job of sleep. And then the net result is hopefully improving our immune system and our function throughout the day.
So to that point, how many hours of sleep do you think we should be getting a day?
There really isn't a one size fits all with this answer. It's interesting when we're young, babies and adolescents, they need more sleep, maybe in the 14 to 17 hour range. But you and I, as we age, we need less and less sleep. So there's not a ton of science on how much you absolutely need. But I would say as adults, somewhere between 7 and 9 hours a night would be optimal. But it's really interesting. As we age, we need less and less sleep. So I probably need, 5, 6 hours of sleep to function optimally. You may need, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. And the issue is what helps you function best. As I say, there is no one size that fits all, and you kind of have to identify what works best for you. So I would say it's a minimum of 6, and when you're younger, you need much more. And as we age, we can tolerate having a little bit less.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm a big workout guy, Dr. Cole. I'm sure you are. I mean, you look in shape.
Not like you, but I
Nah,
strive
I
to.
don't
I
know.
strive. I strive to be you.
Question for you is, how does working out impact your sleep? I know for me, if I work out late at night, I don't get sleep. Like if I'm pumping weights at night,
Yeah.
I don't get sleep. If I have like a later workout in the morning, it's the best thing for me. What about does that have any effects?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty important. So I think what you're acknowledging is if you work out within 3 hours of your sleep, that's actually detrimental, and you're sort of up. You've got an uptick in everything that's going on, your mind, your body, and so forth. So exercising right before you go to sleep probably not a good idea. That being said, not being sedentary all day leads to a lot of agitation, and you're kind of stir crazy when you're trying to sleep. So exercise is really important in general throughout the day, and it can give you a better night's sleep. But doing it at the proper timing, the proper intensity is really important. So I would argue do it during the day, whether you choose morning or night, and we can discuss the benefits of either one. But doing it within 3 hours of the time you go to sleep, probably not a great idea. You want to really sort of, it's not a bad idea to sort of exhaust yourself at some point with exercise, but what you don't want to do is go to bed all charged up with endorphins flowing and everything else.
Mm-hmm. So, staying on the workout questions here. What's more important, an extra hour of sleep or getting up and working out? What'd you say?
If you're a poor sleeper and you get up in the morning and you haven't had the opportunity to get the optimal amount of sleep, I think working out can be a real challenge. I would say ideally it'd be great to be able to work out in the morning. There's some evidence that shows that it sort of upregulates our metabolism. So I wouldn't get up early just to work out unless that's your schedule. And I think we're all kind of fighting, this balance of having a busy schedule and finding time to work out. But if exercise is your priority and you have that flexibility, I would argue don't interrupt a good night's sleep with getting up too early, because it just compromises your ability to work out. The flip side is if you've had a great night's sleep and you can get up early, I would say that's probably the best time. But if you're not a morning person, then I would argue that doing it in the afternoon it can be equally beneficial. I think it's more of an issue of how you get it done. And rather than saying this is best in the morning or this is best at night.
Gotcha. Okay. Next thing about me is I love food. Big food guy, Dr. Cole. And sometimes I'm eating before I go to bed. And sometimes I'm eating really badly. What should we be eating before we go to sleep?
Yeah, this is another area that's really interesting. There's this narrative that goes on and says, look, don't eat right before you go to bed, but I think you can eat before you go to bed. It's just sort of a healthful snack. It could be almonds, it could be turkey, it could be kiwis, things like that actually promote sleep. But what you don't want to do is eat a complex meal that has, fats, protein, simple sugars, carbohydrates. That's not a good idea before you go to sleep. But a simple healthful snack like almonds or other can actually make a big difference. So other things could be whole grain cereal, things like that. Other things that can be very helpful are like foods that have tryptophan. Actually, turkey has tryptophan, and that helps and that helps with serotonin, which is a hormone that actually is a sleep hormone, can be very, very effective. This is for the typical person. If you have type 1 diabetes and other medical issues, it doesn't apply. But the general take home is a large meal before you go to bed is not a good idea. Doing complex meals that have sort of all the food groups, not a good idea, but a simple sort of healthy snack like almonds, that's a good idea.
So I need to swap out almonds for my ice cream and cookies.
That would be a good idea.
All right, I'll work on that. Also, I don't know if it's just me. I've been having some crazy dreams lately. Could that be what's going on with the stress and everything, or what?
I'm not really an expert in dreams. I'll tell you that much. There is one thing about sleep, and this would be interesting to our viewers. You know that cuddling releases oxytocin. So cuddling is a big thing, right? You might want to talk about that when you do your bedtime story.
So I need to find something to cuddle with.
You got to find someone or something to cuddle with. It reduces stress, improves your mood, and it helps you sleep. So, but truth be told, I will tell you this: stress can inhibit your sleep, as we talked about. It can lead to dreams. Trauma leads to nightmares and bad dreams. So, I think if people are sort of feeling at this time that's a big problem, it's not surprising. And I think learning to manage this during the day, I think it probably help you at night in reducing the stress and the subsequent problems with bad dreams.
The one thing once you said I need to find something to cuddle with, I kind of lost you on that one. So I got to find something to cuddle with. Struggling though. But I know a lot of people are working from home right now. They're trying to get extra rest in the morning. But is that actually causing more harm than good? Because they're sleeping more, and then they're just like, oh, I can roll out of bed and be at 8:30 because I work at 9. And do you think that's worse than getting up at your normal routine hours?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I think, there's this concept we call sleep hygiene, which is having some regularity. So getting up at the same time of the day, going to bed at the same time of day, getting rid of the screen time and so forth. All these things can really help. So I would argue that getting out of your regular routine, now that people are working at home, is probably not a great idea. So I think it's all about doing something on a regular basis that you find works for you. And if you disrupt it periodically during the week with sleeping until 11 o'clock one day and then getting up at 6, that's the thing that kind of throws off your circadian rhythm. And that leads to all the problems with your immune system and stress tolerance and so forth.
So to that point, do you think naps are bad?
It's not that I think they're bad. Look, if you're sleep deprived and you're having a tough time getting a full night's sleep at night, then the full night that is meaningful for you, I would argue that taking a nap is a good thing. But if you're taking strong naps during the day and you get a good night's sleep, it can be very difficult to get to sleep at night. So I would argue get rid of the nap if you're getting a decent night's sleep. If you feel you really need it for recovery, it's not such a bad thing to do.
Gotcha. So is there any last tips you got for sleeping in this time of stress right now?
So yeah, I kind of took note of a few things that I think are particularly important. Walking up to 150 minutes a week is actually shown to reduce issues pertaining to sleep at night. As I mentioned, avoiding exercise within 3 hours of your sleep is a good idea. Obviously, the obvious ones are energy drinks and caffeinated beverages after dinner, not a great idea. It's really important to keep a regular sleep schedule. That's a big one. There's this concept of chronotype. Chronotype is sort of knowing how you function best. You're a morning person, you're a midday person, you're a night person. If you kind of respect that, you can and do that as part of your regular routine, your sort of sleep hygiene. I think that can be particularly helpful. So, and the other one is too much hydration. All of us are trying to stay really hydrated, but too much hydration, you're going to get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom. So that's actually a bigger problem at night. So trying to minimize how much fluid intake assuming you're not behind or fluid negative, minimizing excessive amounts of fluid before you go to bed is actually a good idea. And remember, cuddling releases oxytocin, and that's a good thing.
Cuddling, oxytocin. We all need it. You heard it.
So, are you going to treat us to something tonight? Rumor has it that there's something special coming our way.
I got something for you guys. Optimal Nutrition, they challenged me. They said, well, we want you to read everyone a bedtime story. And when they said that, I was shaking like that nervous kid in class with the cool shoes who probably couldn't read really well. That's me. So, but I'm going to set the mood here. I'm going to read us a few pages. Ooh, you can't see that one. But I got a little candle. You still can't see it? Whatever. Never mind. Candles aren't in the video. But I'm going to read y'all the tale of Peter Rabbit so y'all can sleep good this Friday night. I'm going to start. Here we go. Ready? Once upon a time, there was 4 little rabbits. Their names was Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. What did you guess it? Final 4, and there's a Peter in here. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fig tree. Now, my dear, said old Mr. Rabbit, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. Mcgregor's garden. We all know, stay away from Mr. Mcgregor. He's got candy, probably. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Mrs. Mcgregor. Now, run along and don't get in any mischief. I am going now. Then, old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather the blackberries. I'd be one of those bunnies. I don't know about y'all. I feel like Dr. Cole, you resemble this guy here we're about to talk about, Peter. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First, he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But, around the end of the cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" My neighbors think I'm probably nuts. Peter was mostly dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away. Altogether, if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net, got caught by the large buttons of his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons. Quite new, must I add. Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed some big tears. But his sobs were overwhelmed by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. What a friend, what a nice sparrow. Mr. McGregor came up with the seed which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter. But Peter wriggled just in time, leaving the jacket behind him. So now Peter's butt naked here in Mr. McGregor's farm. Let it be known right here. That's a butt naked rabbit, everybody. And rushed into the tool shed, and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath the flower pot. He began to turn it over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed, "Ka-choo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. And tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath, trembling with fright, still butt naked, and he had not the least idea which way to go. What the hell? See, I can't read this. Also, he was very damp with sitting in the can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lipty-lipty, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. Now they're calling him fat. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorsteps, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head, and Peter began to cry. That ain't news to us, people. Anyways, then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water can. A white cat staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still. But now and then, the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Screech! Scratch! Scratch! Screech! Peter scuttered underneath all the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon the wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards the Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go. A long straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. Mcgregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last. Look at this. In the nick of time, people. See that? In the nick of time, Peter got away. Mr. Mcgregor hung up the little jacket and shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was a second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. Now we're talking about fortnight. I am sorry to say Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea. That's good for you to go to bed, chamomile tea.
It is.
Now we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And she gave him a dose. She gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Floppy, Mopsy, Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. So the moral of the story is, if you're going to break out and do bad things, make sure you tie up your shoes and wear some tighter clothes.
It's pretty good. I don't know. I don't need to cuddle when I got Peter Rabbit and you, big guy.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Paul, I never thought I would get to read you such an amazing book.
That was great. I'm good for the night.
All right. So, Dr. Cole, that is all we got for them today, if they're still awake. But make sure you guys rest up, because tomorrow is our grand finale with 3 big events. We got from Peloton, Tunde Onye. I'm going to mess up her name. But I love Peloton, love Tunde, about building community and empowering your team, which I think is so important when it comes to training, lifting, life, everything. She'll be joined by Albie Dahlkemper and sports psychologist Dr. Jared Spencer. And then also, another big one of our favorite power couples, Haley Page and Conrad Lewis, are closing out the week with a special pairs workout you don't want to miss. Grab your boyfriend, grab your best friend, go work out with them. So check out Optimum Nutrition's full schedule on Instagram feed. They have everything going on there. Join in, have fun. Dr. Cole, thanks for all of your knowledge, my man.
Great hanging with you tonight.
We'll do this again sometime.
I'd love to.
Stay safe out there.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody.